Beirut. Let me go first to Mr. Burton here. Mr. Burton, I talked about, is this Arab Spring 2.0? The last time, as I said, we saw what happened didn't really result in much reforms. In fact, things might just have gotten worse in the countries where the Arab Spring began. What was the sense then, and how do you look at the situation now?
Well, when we look at what happened back in 2011 with the uprisings that started in Tunisia and then moved into Egypt, you saw a groundswell of enthusiasm and excitement. You mentioned the violence, but a lot of that was as a result of the governments actually responding and reacting to that. And so when we saw the first stumbling block in Libya, where the government made it very clear that they were not going to allow, the same thing to happen to them. They were not going to allow the government to be overthrown. And so they started to push back. So I think what you find, especially if you're comparing what's happening now, I think we have had nearly a decade of, pushing back and forth. But I think what's interesting that today compared to the past is this, very conscientious decision maybe on the parts of the protesters to not link up the protests. Not only have we seen them taking place in Iraq and Lebanon, but also earlier in the year we saw them happening in Sudan and Algeria. And of course, there are very specific reasons for these uprisings, these demonstrations and protests, much of it linked to economic frustration, the stagnation of the economy, the fact that there aren't very many jobs for young people coming through, and very poor public services. Those are the issues that are underpinning all of this. But whereas before in 2011, there was this sense that, the protests were linked, that there was a sense of Arabness and frustration across the region. Today, there's more of an emphasis on dealing with, the issues within each country.